Success in Radio. It's all about what's next. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and sign up for your free weekly newsletter. You'll also get 3 free reports. The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.
And welcome. You're listening to the Financial Survival Network. It's Kerry, Lutz, and with us, it's What Won't They Try Wednesday. Andrew Hoffman, Andy, and all the dominoes are being set up in a row. Vladimir Putin, rumors of his death or disappearance greatly exaggerated, collapsing global economy, and much more. What's going on here?
Well, you know, the thing with Putin, it's almost like for years and years, it was like anytime gold went up, they'd say, oh, well, maybe we're going to capture bin Laden. We heard that he's captured, as if capturing bin Laden, and we're talking about in 2005, 6, 7, 8, 9, would matter. I mean, what would it matter? And if Putin died, how would it matter? How would it change the world? What, do you think the next guy in Russia is going to lay down to the United States? No, everything is set in stone. And when we talk about what's going on this morning, I mean, Russia is about 10th on my list. Meanwhile, we may have World War III in the Ukraine any day, and it's just so far down the list of near-term black swan issues that we're dealing with. It's incredible. I wrote yesterday the final phase of manipulation, corruption, and lunacy, because I just can't believe what I'm seeing around me. The moronic statements that come out of people, the moronic beliefs in central banks, in stock markets based on, I mean, we are in 2008 across the board, except far worse. And, as I said before, I wrote an article this morning called Oil, Greece, and the Fed. Those 3 things alone, we could talk about all afternoon. Every aspect of the global political situation, economic situation, and now social situation is falling apart in front of our eyes. And the only thing that's left is, as I call it, last-to-go markets, like the Dow Jones Propaganda Average and, of course, paper, gold, and silver. Without the 24/7 nonstop manipulation of these things, we would have imploded into the abyss long ago. But as it is, the longer that they pushed it and kicked the can, the more horrific it's going to be. I mean, you pick your topic. What do you want to talk about?
Well, this Grexit, has it been discounted yet, or is it really going to be upheaval?
Discounted. I mean, it's just that nothing's been discounted. The stock market's at an all-time high. The German stock market's at an all-time high. And of course, this is because of money printing and market manipulation. If you think there's no PPT in Germany as well, trust me, there is. They're there every single day, keeping up stock prices. We know now that Japan does it overtly. We know now that China does it implicitly through their trust funds. Everyone is doing it. Again, they had their deer in headlight moments in 2008 and again 2011. At this point, the powers that be in each of these individual nations, like the U.S. or China, have all figured out, why are we not manipulating our stock market 24 hours a day? I mean, who's going to know if we just print zillions and zillions of yuan and yen and dollars and euros and just buy the stocks all day? And some of them have been stupid enough to admit it, like the Japanese, and now we're learning the Chinese, because apparently their trust funds, which are owned by the government, have been buying hand over fist across the board. And of course, we know it's going on here, and now it's going on in Europe. In Europe, you look at Germany, right? Today, the ECB opened a new building in Frankfurt. Okay, who has benefited more from the ECB than Germany? They have record high stock prices and bond prices. Crappy economy, horrible unemployment, but record high stock and bond prices. And there was violent protest there, people who don't want austerity. They want a breakup of the euro. And as for Greece, I mean, it was only a few years ago we were talking about the derivatives and the debt. Because the markets have been held up, people don't seem to care. There's nothing discounted. I mean, look at the National Bank of Greece stock, NBG. It's right back at its lows from when the Syriza elections came in. And if you listen to the things that are being said on both sides, I mean, Greece could default on Friday. They need 2 billion euros. They don't have 2 billion euros. And both sides are saying, we hate you. We can never speak to each other. We will never agree to anything. Of course they're going to Grexit, and they're probably going to be Grexiting before that 4-month extension period. And when they do, they're going to default on their debt, and it's going to spread all around Europe, and Podemos is going to win in Spain, and the National Front in France, and the Five-Star Movement in Italy, and everywhere else around the world who doesn't want to pay off their unpayable debt.
I have a great idea for them. How about if they just write a post-dated check?
Well, that's what they do. I mean, that's what money printing is. You print money. It's an IOU. It's a post-dated check. it keeps the game going for as long as it can keep going. And again, how much credibility do these people have when the 99% are no longer, at one point they were, we're just not benefiting. Now everyone is being destroyed. Are people not looking at the currencies around the world? The average currency is down 40% since the big money printing started after what I call the point of no return in mid-2001. The Fragile Five, where a quarter of the world's population live, their currencies are down 50% against the dollar, and it's all because the Fed exported inflation to them. And the BRICS, I did my audio blog this weekend called The Death of the BRICS. The BRICS is where half of the world's population live, and the average currency, their five currencies, or their four, because the Chinese yuan is pegged, are down 90% against the dollar since the U.S. started with its QE2 and QE3 and Operation Twist and all its other things. We are destroying the world. The Fed has destroyed more in 100 years of existence, heck, more in 10 years than the entire world has done to each other in hundreds of years.
Yeah, it's rather remarkable to see the way things are deteriorating. And you knew that at some point the momentum was going to pick up, right? It had to happen.
Yeah, I mean, it was inevitable. I mean, you cannot print money and assume that things will, all that does is make things worse. And again, I'll go back to, I guess I call him my new mentor. I think David Stockman is the most brilliant writer out there. If he'd embrace manipulation of markets, that would make him 100%. But he doesn't need to do that. He came up with the concept of this great deformation. Mm-hmm. And what he wrote about was that because of all of the money printing, and of course the financial engineering that Wall Street created and was able to run roughshod over the world when it took over the politics of like the United States government and the British government, because of that we've had such a massive overcapacity of everything from oil and gas wells, transportation, roads, cities, mines, everything. Because of that, we will be in this deflationary hell for decades. And I wrote an article on January 2nd, basically, parroting that, called the direst prediction of all. And it is no doubt. What we are seeing in oil is the direct result of all the money printing and predatory financing that has gone on in the world. Oil is the ultimate subprime. It's going to make the housing subprime market look like nothing. And by the way, the housing market is now collapsing full out. And all you have to do is look at the lumber price, which is falling faster than the euro, to realize that there never was a housing recovery. And right now it is falling as fast as it was in the 2008 crisis. All of these things at once. And the Fed has got to come out today and try to wordsmith. And that 120 people sit in those stupid meetings trying to change the red line, the statement from the last one, so as to keep the markets from imploding and keep gold from soaring. And they got to try to pretend that they're still confident when 2 weeks ago. Now, I'm sorry I'm doing all the talking here, okay? Okay. 2 weeks ago was that Humphrey Hawkins testimony, okay, where Janet Yellen speaks twice a year to Congress. And I've written about this forever. It's just become a key attack event for the cartel. If you remember the leap day violation 2 years ago when they attacked gold, when Bernanke was talking, saying absolutely nothing. But my point with these meetings is the Fed chair never, ever, ever says anything incremental at those meetings. They come on, they take what they had just said at the last meeting, they parrot it, and then they just kind of answer questions and get out of there. They want to be on their own turf when they make decisions. Well, Janet Yellen, that was for all intents and purposes an FOMC meeting, because they literally took the statement from the last meeting, redlined it, and put it out in a modified term. And what it was, per the title of my audio blog the next day, was the most unequivocally dovish FOMC statement in memory. They basically said, no chance we're raising rates. No, we're not even thinking about raising rates. And if we were going to think about raising rates, we'd first change our guidance. And even if we change our guidance, that doesn't necessarily mean we're going to raise rates. That's what she said. And here we are today. That was 2 weeks later. The oil price is $42 a barrel, on its way into the 30s, probably by next week. We're talking about the commodity index is about to break through the 2008 lows. The dollar has exploded and literally destroyed currencies around the world. U.S. economic data, even the Fed's model is saying we're going to have zero GDP growth in the first quarter. And I'm seeing on CNBC, they're saying, well, it's guaranteed they're going to take the word patient out. Like, we're back in that considerable time thing where they took it out, but they just replaced it with patient. Who would think that they're going to say anything incrementally hawkish? After 2 weeks ago, she was so dovish, and the world has gotten worse. It's become lunacy. Yesterday, my article was titled, the final stage of manipulation, currency, and idiocy. This is it completely. The fact that anyone, as if anyone's listening to CNBC, actually could care less about whether she says the word patient or not, much less that anyone would believe that the Fed is more hawkish than they were 2 weeks ago.
They're parsing nonsense here, Andy.
Exactly. It gets to the point where it's all about credibility. That credibility will be gone.
It's silliness. I mean,
if they take the word patient out after what she said 2 weeks ago and what's going on in the markets, this will be the period of time, the instant in time where people say, we no longer are even listening to the Fed anymore. No more the Fed is your friend, no more this. Not to mention, if they said anything even tiny bit hawkish, even the slightest bit hawkish, let alone taking the word patient out, that dollar index, which is sitting right under 100, well, I mark my words, it will explode up. It will go to 105. The euro will go into parity. And remember, the White House itself issued a statement last week saying we are very worried about the strong dollar. It is hurting the U.S. economy. This is the final currency war we're in. This is the last thing that the U.S. wants is a strong dollar. And it's going berserk.
They can't stop it. I think this is the toothpaste is out of the tube. Right. All the factors are in play. They could declare negative interest rates 5% tomorrow, and the dollar would still go up because it's not about interest rate parity. It's nothing about that. It's about fear of implosion of the euro.
That's what I've been saying.
What can you do? There's nothing that can be done here, Andy.
And not just the euro, everything. It's the way I've described it. Yeah. I predicted it not last year, the year before, December 2013. I said the dollar index will explode because everyone will be terrified, as in 2008, that the big one is here. They want the liquidity of the dollar. There is no way the dollar can collapse against any other currency in this kind of situation. In 2008, it happened, and here it's going to be much worse. And again, if the Fed even dared to try to be cute, let alone they'd lose their credibility. But if they dared to try to be cute today, you will see the dollar have an historic rally, which will make the one that just happened look like nothing. And then, of course, you have, as we talked about, the Chinese yuan. No one is suffering more than the Chinese from the soaring dollar because of their peg. It's like the opposite of the Swiss being pegged to the euro. I mean, they announced today the biggest ever drop in housing prices. Their bubble economy, the biggest bubble in history, is in full-out collapse, and nothing is making it worse than the soaring dollar. So if they want to invite the depegging of the yuan, which is coming, which will be the biggest bang in the history of economic big bangs, then they can be stupid and pretend that they're bullish. All they could do is to try to kick the can as far as they can by being dovish, but not hinting yet that they're looking at additional policy measures. But remember, the only thing, again, number one thing people need to realize, the only thing the Fed cares about, the only thing is the stock market. If we all died, if a nuclear bomb destroyed every person in America, but they had their PPT in a secret bunker, buying the Dow Jones, if it was open, buying Dow Jones and getting it to go up, they would smile and say that they were successful. That's all they care about. And guess what? The stock market is not going up anymore. The stock market is in very, very, very tenuous condition. The strong dollar is killing it. The collapsing oil price will kill America. Forget the dollar. We've got all these $500 billion of junk bond finance shale companies. So no, the Fed will be dovish. They will be unequivocally dovish. And next time around, remember in December, they said by the March meeting, we're going to raise rates. Well, guess what? We're at the point now that they're going to be treading on talking about being easy with policy. Definitely by the next meeting, they're going to have to.
And we've always said, you and I, for the foreseeable future, meaning for years to come, they were never going to raise rates. They could say it all they liked, but they're never going to raise rates here.
Yeah, and that's why Peter Schiff on this topic, he's the best at it. He talks about how they want to pretend that they're going to raise rates. They can't do it, but they want to pretend that they're doing it. So they say, well, we're thinking about doing it, but we're not really actually doing it. But we have to start thinking about this. They're not raising rates. We have $18 trillion of debt. I mean, the country is drowning in debt. We couldn't take a 0.5% increase in interest rates, let alone on what it would do to the dollar and the financial markets, but just paying off the debt of this country. Remember, the U.S. government and the Fed have, the U.S. government is now this tiny, low, short duration. It's all short-term finance. So the slightest increase in interest rates will cause it to, cause the interest, the service cost to explode higher. And the opposite with the Fed, with their idiotic policy of buying all the long dated, like Operation Twist, they now have this huge duration and now a $4.5 trillion balance sheet. So if interest rates go up in the slightest, the Fed's balance sheet implodes. So again, interest rates ain't going up from official means. They certainly might by the market, but more likely it's going to be like what you're seeing in Europe. They're just going to front run QE to infinity. That's what I've been saying forever. Rates in the U.S., rates in every non-Greece nation that's literally on the verge of collapse, now is going to do the same thing. Germany almost has their 10-year rates in 0% land, and same with Switzerland, and same with some of these pigs. I mean, you're talking about 1% interest rate in Spain. Spain is going to be the next Greece probably by the end of this year. Incredible.
It appears that way.
Because people are front-running QE to infinity. But what happens when Podemos wins in Spain and they want a Grexit also, or a Spexit, whatever you want to call it? They're going to win. Yeah. The Syriza of Spain is going to win the presidency in December. And on top of that, Catalonia, which only 4 months ago, 81% of the people voted to secede in what the government at the last second called an unconstitutional vote. Well, guess what? They still want to secede. And with all that's going on in Spain, Catalonia is going to secede with 25% of Spain's tax revenues at the same time that Podemos takes power and wants to secede from the euro.
Well, maybe what Doug Casey said, that the nation state is really obsolete or becoming obsolete. Maybe he's spot on about that, Andy.
Well, certainly the socialist/communist are. I mean, the more socialist you are, and that goes for OPEC nations too, which is why they'll never stop producing oil, no matter how low the price is, because they're so socialist that they had used $100 price assumptions for their social spending. And the more socialist you are, the faster you collapse. And no block of nations is more socialist than Europe. I mean, are people looking at what's going on in France with their 1% interest rates? I mean, Marine Le Pen has already won the election. It's going to be in, I think, next year, not this year. She's won. She's so far ahead, it's not even funny. Right. And she wants France to leave the euro. And, you look at Beppe Grillo, the Jon Stewart of Italy and his 5-star movement. Yeah. They have the most seats in the Italian parliament. Take a guess who's going to be the next prime minister of Italy when the next election is, and what he wants to do. He said, I want Italy to leave the euro. And when someone says, I want to leave the euro, what they really are saying is, I want to default on the debt we have to all of the other euro nations.
And the banks and the countries.
Absolutely.
And Germany, effectively, right?
Of course.
Germany.
And in Germany, remember, there was only one bank that failed the Fed stress test last week.
Yeah, Deutsche Bank.
Yeah, Deutsche Bank. It would be like, throwing a softball pitch to someone with a 50-foot softball. You can't miss it. And Deutsche Bank, the biggest bank in Europe, missed it. Remember, it was only a year ago when the vice chairman of the FDIC here called Deutsche Bank horribly undercapitalized. And then they had to do this massive dilutive equity offering just to stay solvent only about a few months ago. And still they're failing this test. You know how many derivatives that bank probably is exposed to because of all the Grexit debt that's out there? And remember, who's the biggest lender to Greece? It's France. And who's the biggest lender to France? It's Germany. Germany. And Germany is also the biggest European exporter to China and its bubble that's collapsing. Everything in Germany is going the wrong way. It's just that when you compare it to Greece, it makes them look like they're a strong country. But Germany is going down the tubes as fast as everyone else. It's a giant anchor that's pulling it into the Marianas Trench.
You know what they say, in the land full of blind men, the one-eyed man is king, right?
Absolutely. The dirty shirt thing. And the dirty shirt thing, it's the whole thing, like with the dollar. It's just the equivalent of being like in Titanic, Jack and Rose, they were at the very, very top of the ship.
Yeah.
So they were, lucky them, they were the last ones to go in the water and die.
Yeah, no lifeboats coming here, huh? I don't see any lifeboats on the horizon. And, hey, I didn't particularly care for the movie. It's been done too many times already. But there's just no exit for this. There's just no
There's
hope.
A Grexit. There's a Grexit and a Spexit and a Portugexit and an Irexit and a Frexit and an Italexit. All of it is going to happen. And it's going to happen everywhere. People forget. Are people not looking at what's going on in South America, not one country, all of them. The Brazilian real, Brazil is one of the BRICS. And again, I wrote Death of the BRICS, or did it. The Brazilian real is falling faster than the Russian ruble right now. They're in revolution. They were all in the streets yesterday.
How do you do that? How do you fall faster than the ruble? I don't understand that one.
They're almost at the rubles, certainly faster than the euro, and close to the ruble. But we're talking about a full-out collapse of Brazil, as if Argentina and Venezuela, the second and third biggest countries, aren't already there. And we're talking about an entire continent. Look at a country like Turkey, Indonesia, South Africa, another one of the BRICS, South African rand, all-time low currency. And not to mention the business of Africa, of South Africa, the main business is mining. But worse yet, it's the equivalent for like gold of shale oil mining here. It's the highest cost in the world. That's why the South African, I wrote 2 years ago, Rise and Fall of the South African mining industry. I couldn't even comprehend where it stands right now. I think we're going to have a big racial revolution over there. It's going to knock things up, that whatever production's there is going to go away forever. It's
been declining for a decade anyway.
Yeah.
All their metals production's been declining. And there's nothing that really can turn it around. A bad place for capital, bad place for white people. Let's face it.
Yeah. I mean, basically, to kind of tie it together, I wrote Supply Response a few weeks ago. I mean, and I wrote an article about peak gold. I've written many. I mean, the point is you have the polar opposite situation with gold and silver, as with every other commodity, because while in this great deformation we're talking about, all the industrial capacity of the world was overbuilt, whether it's oil, base metals, or even farmland in some cases has been overdone. But the opposite has occurred in gold and silver because of the suppression of prices, to the point where the mining industry is dead. And my title last week with our podcast was, "Is there a mining industry?" No, it's dead, dead, dead. It couldn't be more dead. Gold production is going to fall so dramatically. I just read that Barrick's production, they're the number one in the world. Barrick production is going to fall like 50% in the next 5 or 7 years. 50%, the number one miner. That's why I wrote the article last week, or the audio blog, about the guaranteed Newmont-Barrick merger. They're going to merge because they're both going to hell in a handbasket quickly. And they're going to start this huge consolidation wave where the entire industry, to save itself, merges and then cuts capex even more in high grades and tries to spin off and sell anything. And production will fall even more. And then in silver, where 2/3 of the production comes from base metal mines, and base metal prices are collapsing. And because of the great deformation, they're going to keep falling and falling and falling. Silver production could fall 50% in the next decade, 50, and that's as prices surge.
And demand.
Prices and demand. Yeah. I mean, it's incredible. And again, for all the hell we're going, silver is $15.50. Well, guess what? U.S. Mint sales to start this year are on a pace with 2014's record level. I mean, you just can't make this stuff up.
No, you can't. Anyway, find Andy's work over at milesfranklin.com. Make sure you sign up for his daily missive along with Bill Halter's. And hey, go over to Financial Survival Network while you're at it. Check out our articles coming from all over the place, trying to get you the truth so you're prepared. Precious metals, your only salvation. I've believed that for a lot of years now. Yeah. Dollar prices in them are down, but look at every other currency. They're at or near record highs. So next time you have the opportunity to buy it, think about that. Andy, next week, be well.
You too, Kerry.
FSN Radio. It's all about what's next. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and sign up for your free weekly newsletter. You'll also get 3 free reports. The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.